project management frameworks. My name is Guilherme and I'm a project management expert. I help professionals to become successful project managers there. Just as a reminder, this content here is part of the warm-up of the Project Management Summit. The Project Management Summit is a free event I'm going to make where I'm going to further help you to develop your project management skills. By the end of that, you also get a certificate there. Everything's free. The only thing that you need to do is click in the link here and subscribe. Well, the topic I'm going to talk about today is, of course, project management frameworks. This is a question that happens quite often, and because right now we have seen the past years a big trend talking about agile, and people keep talking about agile is the trend, agile is the trend. What's important for you to understand that there are different frameworks, not only agile there, and all those frameworks, they have reasons to exist. So the first thing in the first discussion about is it agile the best framework or waterfall is the best framework, this is in the end this is all bullshit. There's no best or worst framework. There's only things that are more suitable for specific situations there. So that's the first step that you need to understand. So let me give you some overview about what kind of frameworks that you can consider. First, if you are thinking about working with project management or working with projects, what you need to understand is that your goal as a project manager there is to add value for the organization. Meaning that if you're able to add value to organization because of the specific type of project that you have there, using waterfall, so you should use it. If your goal is to add more value on the organization because you're using Agile, or in this case one of the Agile frameworks, so go ahead and do that. That's the first thing that you need to understand. So stop thinking about waterfall or agile because in the end, you as a project manager, you are there to add value. So you should not fall in love by waterfall, by agile for a hybrid approach for a specific procedure or not. You should always thinking about how can I add value? How do you add value as a project manager? Well, your project has a goal. The organizations they create a project for a specific type of reason. And what's the reason for your project? It depends. For example, all those things that you see here in the screen, from the Coliseum room, from a new car, from a new iPhone, from a new manufacturing site, for a new house, a new manufacturing line, a wind farm, a mine, a new product, a movie, a big event, all those things are a project. So you need to start thinking about why you need to understand why the project was created in your organization. What's the goal of the organization? And of course, depending on the type of business you're going to say, the goal is to make money on that. It's usually all the organizations they need to make money, but only that's not only money because what the organization wants, of course, they want to make more money, but they want to be able to invest, they want to be able to grow their market share, they want to be able to get recognition with the customers. All those things matter there. And of course, money is also important. Having a positive business case is always important. The analogy that I always make, it's like we breathe, like we need air to live, so we breathe every time. And without air, we cannot survive. And that's the same thing for money. Money works for an organization as oxygen works for us. An organization needs money, otherwise it will die. However, the organization should not only exist to make money. So that's why it's important when you think about your project, what the organization is trying to achieve. Maybe the organization is trying to grow, get the customer recognition, improve the market share, increase the portfolio, and of course making money in the end of that. But first, thinking about you need to fully understand what your organization is trying to do there, because you can imagine that build a house there is quite different from building a car, which is quite different from organizing like the World Cup, organizing Olympic Games, or creating a software. That's why you have all those different types of framework. So let's start with that. Think about what's the value of my project, because very important for you to understand the goal. I can tell you that here's some research from Project Management Institute. Inadequate vision or inadequate project goal is one of the top 5 reasons why projects fail. So if you start by understanding there, you already start to mitigate this type of risk. Once you have more understanding, okay, what your organization is trying to achieve, you need to understand different types of things to understand what type of framework you should go for. You need to understand what's the relationship with the customer. You need to understand a bit what type of customer you have, what type of contract that you have with this customer. For example, in a construction project, very often you see fixed price contracts there. What's a fixed price contract there? Say, let's say you're trying to build a house, and then the contractor say it costs $100,000, and you expect the contractor, to execute with $100,000, a fixed price. You are not going to change. What's the challenge if you're operating a contract with a fixed price? Every time the customer asks for changes, and usually you are going to have changes in projects, that's just how the business works. Someone needs to pay for the change. And if you have a fixed price, you need to negotiate this payment. Why? At certain level. But I just mentioned that money is an important thing. Can you imagine if you're a contractor and then suddenly people start to change, and then there's of course cost of the change. Say I want an extra pool, now I want a heated pool, now I want a sauna or something like that in the house. The price starts to go up, and at some point the contractor is losing money to build that house. What's going to happen in the long term? The company will be out of business. That's it works. The same idea works for all types of projects if you have a fixed price. So it's important that you negotiate with your customer. Why I'm saying that? Because if you look for agile, for example, one of the things is embrace change to add value for the customer. And I'm not saying that you should not do that. You always should do that. Why I'm just saying that's something important, the type of contract. Because in the end you cannot embrace all the change and don't consider what's going to happen with the business case, what's going to happen with the cost of the company there. So this is a very important item to take into consideration. What type of project that you have, what you are trying to build. For example, to build a car, I can tell you, I've worked in the automotive industry. Some components of the car, some systems of the car, they have long lead time because some of them they use special type of material, for example, a special type of steel. They have a long lead time for producing, or they need tools with long lead time to produce something that's very precise. All those things take time. So if you say, let's give an example, a plastic connector. Usually you should look for a plastic connector, that one that you have a lot in the car. I've worked with that, so that's why I know it. You can easily find lead times to get the connector ready, to get the tooling ready for a mass production. Easily, you're going to see lead times between 15 and 20 weeks. What happens if you change a lot the dimensions? Well, to iterate, to have the new change implemented, that might take you a long lead time, from few weeks for a few months, depending on what you are going to do with it. So why I'm saying that? Because this is quite important for the type of framework that you're going to use. There's a nice phrase, I think this is from James Clear, that he says, if failing is cheap, do it fast. Why? Because it's easy to fix. It's failing, it's expensive, plan it carefully. And that resumes very well the idea of the different frameworks that you have there. So keep that in mind. There are all types of situation, and you are going to require different frameworks. Am I saying that agile does not work? No. Am I saying that waterfall does not work? No. I'm saying that instead of just jumping on into something because that's how people are doing that, thinking about it, what I'm trying to achieve. And why I'm saying that? Because if you start to do those things, you're going to be able to add more value for your organization. More value you add, more opportunities you're going to have. Usually, if you add a lot of value, your salary will also increase accordingly. You're going to get more opportunities, more promotions, and so on. So, frameworks can differ. And another very example that I use, for example, this here, it's a mining company. I've worked in this project here. I was responsible for part of that project here. You can imagine that the type of documentation, structure, communication, management that you need in a project with like that one that had more than 10,000 people involved in the project itself is quite different than if you are creating an app, whatever app that you like. I always use the example of ordering pizza, that you have, I don't know, 4 or 5 developers sitting in the same room. The kind of structure, communication, and management that you're going to need is completely different. So, what are the frameworks that you're going to have? So, let me go back to the other slide. Basically, you have a framework that's called waterfall or traditional. This is how everything started. Why waterfall? Why waterfall? Because you start with your requirements. Then, based on that, you define all the requirements up front. You are going to define your scope based on your requirements, where you're going to fix your scope. Then you're going to move to make an estimation for time and cost, and that goes only in one direction, at least theoretically, because I already mentioned that there's always change. Then once you have a time and cost estimation, you move to execution until you release or you complete the project. What's the difference with an agile framework? From the start, you already understand that you don't have all the knowledge about your project. So what you're going to do? You are going to take the scope that you have, you're going to prioritize, you're going to take a piece of this scope and you're going to execute an interaction. For example, an interaction, if you're using Sprint, if you're using Scrum, it's called Sprint. So in this interaction, you plan the interaction, you execute, inspect, and you adapt, and by the end of that, you know a bit more about your scope. Why is that an interesting one? If you are working in a project that you have a lot of unclarities, does not make sense to try to fix all the scope up front. Because a lot of unclarities you are going to need to change, so you're going to waste time planning that. And of course, think about the quote from James Clear again. If failing is expensive, meaning that if you say, I've worked in a project, for example, that it was a machine part made of steel, and there was a special type of steel because this component would be used in very high pressure environments up more than 2000 bar. So this very special type of steel was qualified to be bought from the company I was working on from a specific steel manufacturer there in Italy, but they would produce that only once a year. So depending on the window where you're talking about, if you do not plan accordingly, you are not going to have the material on hand. This is just one example. So going back to the agile approach, so you are going to learn and you are going to adapt, and you are going to do that progressively. So more uncertainties that you have, better to go for an agile approach. What's very important to say here? The approach that you're going to follow does not define the leadership type that you have in your project. Why I'm saying that? A lot of people think because if you're following a waterfall approach, you should behave like the old, between brackets, of course, like the boss, telling everybody what they need to do it and pushing them to do it. No, that's not the case. If you're a good leader, if you're a good team worker, or if you can collaborate well with your team, you need to engage with your team in a positive way. So just because you're using waterfall does not mean that you're going to come up with a plan and you're going to push into people say, now you must do it. Because this kind of thing does not work. So keep that, it's important. So because, and why I'm saying that, because if you look for agile, and I can put here parts of the agile manifesto, for example, you're going to see that this is agile. It's about of interaction with people, how the team is going to interact, how you're going to make sure that you're not only building something, but you're building your team together. And of course, the Agile Manifesto says that and highlights that very straightforward, but that does not mean that if you're not following an Agile approach, like if you're not following Scrum or anything like that, you should not do that. Good leadership is good leadership regardless of the approach that you're taking. So if you are using waterfall, does not mean that you are going to blame your team if something goes wrong. That's bad leadership. Does not mean that you should tell everything that people should do, that you should tell when they should do it. What you need to understand, and that of course that's also going to work into if you are working in an agile environment. If you are work with a team, and in the team they say, "Oh, I'm going to do whatever task today." If you are, let's assume that you're executing any Scrum approach. Following Scrum, you have the daily Scrum, what's also called the stand-ups. That's the 15 minutes that they have every day to align what needs to be done. And someone in the meeting they say, "I'm planning to do that." If if the team consider that what this person is working is the lower priority, that needs to be aligned in this type of meeting. Say, dear X, I understand that, but if this task here is not executed, then that will block a lot of other tasks. So someone in the team needs to organize this. And but what's the difference when you are talking about Scrum? You are expecting that these will emerge in the interaction with the team. And that's why the team is always aligning, discussing priorities, what needs to be done, what does not, what was done yesterday, what still needs to be done, and what are the roadblocks. Because if you pop up with the roadblocks, it's up to the team to align how to define it. That means that a team member might decide to put something, say, hey, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to tackle this higher priority. It should work exactly in the same way if you're using a waterfall project. Just because it's a waterfall does not mean that you should not have the team collaboration. Something that's very important also to understand when you talk about frameworks. So let me go back here. When you talk about frameworks, there's when you talk about agile mainly, agile kind of evolved from lean. And I know that you're going to see people that they say no, it's different, it's completely different. Well, there's a lot of people saying that it's not that different. And if you really study agile, you're going to see that's a lot of they're building on lean. They took lean and they start to use it for projects. And a lot of the same tools, visual management, Kanban, empowering your team, that comes from lean. So agile is something that's building on lean. Keep that in mind. So agile, it's not a framework by itself. So what you see there, you see agile as an umbrella term that covers Kanban, that covers Scrum, that covers XP, DSDM, Scrumban, Crystal, and all types of framework. Keep that in mind when people are telling that. So if someone's saying I'm executing agile, there's a very high chance they really do not understand what agile is. So for you, you can learn that. And what's something very important when you are executing a project? So for that, I'm also going to bring you to a next step to talk about a bit the project management body of knowledge. What's the project management body of knowledge? It's called the PMBOK Guide. It's the standard for project management from the Project Management Institute. Project Management Institute is the biggest project management organization around the world, and they have a project management standard to guide people in project executions. The latest version here, if you want to learn more, by the way, on PMBOK, I have a lot of content on that one, free content. Just look into my channel, and you're going to learn it. But the last edition, they talk about project management principles. Why project management principles? Because previous editions they were talking about framework. Now they focus in principles that you need to execute to manage your project. Why this is so important? Because I've already mentioned that all projects are different, situations are different. So what you need to understand is you need to understand those principles in a higher level and try to execute. What's the problem with people only focusing on specific? I get a lot of people saying, I want to learn Scrum or I want to learn Agile. What's the problem with that? Because to be successful with project management, one of the things that you need to learn is to build this overview, this systemic view, how the PMI like to call in the PMBOK. And what is about systemic view, why this is important? Because from this systemic view, a lot of things will come from you. For example, risk management. What's a risk management? Risk management is basically anticipate possibilities from the future and trying to take actions right now to reduce or to increase possibilities. Meaning that you say, oh, if we don't buy this raw material, we might have a delay in the project. So let's make sure we buy the raw material now. Why it's important to have an overview for that? Because if you do not have this systemic view, if you do not understand this in a higher level, in a higher principle level, you're not going to be able to oversee your project. What I've seen happening a lot, people say, I want to work with Agile, so I'm going to study the Scrum Guide. Studying the Scrum Guide is very easy. Why? It's, I think, a 12 or 13-page document there. It's very nice, very interesting, very important for you to study. But if you only study the Scrum Guide, you are only looking for a very small piece of a puzzle there. And if you're doing that, you're not going to be able to build this broader view. For example, on the Scrum Guide, you're not going to see even a word on key performance indicators for business case, for example. How you're going to measure your business case. And I'm not saying that you should be a finance specialist, an accountant, or anything like that. But you need to understand your business case if you want to be successful with projects. That's very straightforward. Otherwise, you are going to putting yourself in a lot of trouble. So keep that in mind that you as a project manager should try to expand your view and why learning different frameworks makes the difference. Because every time thinking about here on all those different type of projects, those different type of projects, they seem different types of challenging, different risks, different types of documentation every time, and of course different frameworks for execution. Every time you're looking for that, you are expanding your view. And meaning that when you are expanding your view, your mind will be able to make associations. Because let's say that you're hiring a project to execute a new car. If you've seen things, for example, in a construction project, you can have different ideas that by association, by analogy, your mind will make that will help you to solve problems. That will help you to better collaborate with your team. That will help you to add more value for your organization, for your team. So that's what's going to make the difference there for you. So stop looking to project management in a way that you only think about framework. Project management is much more than only frameworks. You need to understand much more leadership, problem solving, productivity, how you're going to plan yourself, emotional intelligence. And of course, more you expand your knowledge, more those things will help you. And that also, of course, works for different frameworks. Because, for example, in organizations now, I've already mentioned that Agile is a big trend. And people really do not understand Agile and they say, we're going to use it. Do you know what's the type of value that you get from Agile? First of all, Agile is not about speed. Agile is about value. Why? Because people are always thinking to do things in a faster way, but the challenge is not doing things in a faster way. Because if you're doing things faster, but you're doing the wrong things, you're only going to get in the wrong place faster. I like to make an analogy of you're traveling. Let's think about you're traveling from New York to San Francisco there. Say, I want to go from New York to San Francisco. But you say you're looking for speed. You're not considering which direction you're driving to. So instead of driving to direction, I don't know, from San Francisco, you need to go down, maybe Washington, depending on how you're going to cross the country or whatever in the United States. But let's assume that instead of going down, you start to go up. You start to go to Canada, from New York to Canada. I'm saying, but I'm focusing in going faster. You're only getting far away from your objective. So you understand what's your objective, then you understand what type of constraints you have around it. For example, types of contracts, what's the relationship with the customer, what type of procedures that you need to have. And then you start to think about how I'm going to add value. And if you're going to think about how you add value, if you have a good and broad view, you're going to think about, okay, I do have waterfall here, I have Scrum, I have Kanban, then say what makes sense in this scenario. Can I take few items that are they're added value from different things to put it together, what's called a hybrid approach. That kind of thing will help you to execute projects in a better way. That's why when you think about the PMBOK, they changed this from a process-based standard to a principle-based standard. Because if you are looking for principles, you are already looking into a higher level, which helps you to build this broader view and not only focusing on say waterfall, waterfall, waterfall. And that's why when you look for the principles, you have tailoring, which means tailoring is basically the idea that you're going to take the frameworks and you're going to make it suit to your reality. You're going to select what and create a hybrid approach fit to make sure that you're using only value added things for you. That's why you have teamwork, that's why you have leadership, system thinking, change, risk management, value, and so on. But that's a very fundamental understanding because in the end, if you only focusing on your framework, it's like when you look for hard skills and soft skills, it's like you're selecting a hard skill, a framework, and you're forgetting out about all the rest. By the way, if you want to learn more about hard and soft skills, I have also free content about that. Just check on my channel there. So this is quite important. Selecting frameworks are important. They are there to help you to structure your project because if you structure your project, you organize in a right way, that will help you to be much more efficient, effective, and also help you to manage and lead your team there. So this is quite important, but only this structure and only this organization will not get you where you need to be because at least at this point artificial intelligence can help you a lot, but also artificial intelligence cannot understand all those type of details. So it's important that you as a project manager you are paying attention on those things. So stop asking the questions which framework I should learn. Should I learn waterfall or should I learn agile or should I learn scrum or should I learn kanban or should I learn safe is the scaled agile framework. So and start to focusing okay, I'm going to learn all of them, at least the main ones that you should learn. What are the main ones? You need to learn waterfall, you need to have a learn on Scrum. Pretty good idea on Kanban. Kanban will help you with a lot of stuff. And based with that, you can start to create a solid foundation to build your project. Because now you start to understand how to add more value into your project, what you need to change, how you need to switch stuff to add more value to your project. With the idea here that your ultimate goal as a project manager is to add value to your project. Your ultimate goal as a project manager is to add value for your project. Why? Because projects exist to add value for organizations. The organizations they are not doing most of the organizations they are not doing projects for fun. They're expecting some type of value in them. And this value can be different, can be from money, customer satisfaction. Sometimes the organization is trying to learn a new technology. Sometimes the organization is trying to get market recognition and improving operations, training people, or anything like that. But there's always a goal for a project and there's always a value that the organization is expecting to get there. Hopefully, and of course, if you have questions, feel free to ask here. You can ask in the comments, or you can go for my Instagram, ask in the Q&A box, send me a direct message there. Don't forget this content here is part of the Project Management Summit. Project Management Summit is a free event, free project management event that will help you to develop your skills and also you get a certificate in the end there. The only thing that you need, of course, to subscribe, so you're going to get all the details and information together with links to download, to watch the classes, to download the material, and of course to be able to get your certificate there. Otherwise, it does not make sense. I am not going to be able to know that you watch it or something or not. And of course, don't forget to like and share this video because that will help you. That will help me to grow my channel. That will help me to see the value in what I'm doing here, but also will help this content to get more people and more people can learn project management. Thank you and see you soon. Bye.